Hello, Karen Whelan. How are you, gorgeous? So good to see you in the middle of the night as well. How are you, darling?
I'm great. Hello, how are we?
Oh,
Hi,
so
everyone.
good. What time is it for you in Ireland?
I am now 25 past 1 in the
Oh my
morning.
goodness.
But I do love this time of the night. This time of the night, as I say, everyone is asleep. And I'm more in touch with the silence of the environment around me.
Yes.
And I love that time because it drops me into my own inner cave and allows me to just go quiet with myself. So it's great. It's wonderful. And just for everyone tuning in as well, a heartfelt hello to everyone. I mean, it's so gorgeous that everyone's taken time out to join us, to feel they want to listen and gain something from what it is that we're all sharing. So wonderful.
Yeah,
Thank you
it's
all.
it's amazing. And let me, introduce you properly, Karen, because this woman, I want you to know right now, stop and listen, okay? Because this is the time when we are really going to start tapping in. And Karen, you are an accredited psychotherapist, right? You're the author of 2 memoirs, tantric teacher, energy rising, star healer. She's a workshop facilitator, speaker, NLP coach, retreat leader, and also a transformational therapist. You're also the founder and creator of Solution Therapy. She offers transformative services to companies, individuals, groups, couples, and teenagers. And I love it, Karen, because you have worked with people for 14 years and witnessed thousands of clients transform their lives, and your work has brought you here to sit with some of the world's experts, and like my favorite, Joe Dispenza, Gebar Mates, training in living inquiries, and incredible spiritual teachers, humanitarian and wellness expert Derek O'Neill. Hoot hoot. You've been able to see her also on TV, radio, and she also writes for a monthly column offering wellness tips. So, Karen, you are incredible, and it's really an honor to have you here with us. I'd love for you to really share, like, how have you gotten into this space, and really how our audience can begin to tap into their intuition and really feel that guidance.
Sure. Yeah. And thank you for bringing me in that way. I suppose for the next little while that I have with you, my real intention will be, it's to tell the story of my heart, tell this testimony of my soul. So in a way, it's kind of the invitation for everyone else to listen with their own ears of our own heart. For me, I'll share it in the moment when I lost that knowing with my intuition, the moment it came back into my life. I would have come in, and as a child, I was an uninhibited, formidable little being of light. I never questioned. I didn't look out at the world with an analytical mind. I had such a trust and a faith in a knowing of a knowing that if I even tried to put language on that knowing, it would go. And that makes sense to me today because really language is what, 10,000 years old? I don't know how many times we've all reincarnated. I don't even know what energy it is that I have come in with in my own DNA cells. But as a child, I would be that child. My neighbors would go, what is that child doing? I'm that child scaling high walls, not looking at the wall with fear, knowing I could do it because I had so much faith and trust in my own self. The trust that I had in Karen. I didn't question her existence. I didn't look out at the world as a separate energy or person. I looked at everything. I saw the essence in everything. I felt I was friends with the wind. I would make shapes in the cloud. There was such a magic. It was tapping into the language of life. We see it when birds come together, starlets, and they move together and they're in harmony. It's like they're moving with the wind and they're all communicating together. It's an undescribable vibration, and I had that. And the day that all changed for me was when I was 14. I spoke up and spoke out. As you already know a little bit of my story, I spoke out about my abuse. I said no to my abuser in a time and a culture in Ireland when people don't speak out about their own abuse. And I spoke out, and I was only 14, and I knew to do it. I knew this was my moment to do this. Everyone around me wanted to protect me, and they wanted to preserve me. And in doing that, they all taught me how I had to do this. I knew the way for Karen to heal at 14, which was crazy. Now, obviously, I wouldn't have had this language and sophistication, but I knew I had to do it my way. I had a knowing this has to be done my way. And my way was to stay in my redemptive heart and say, forgive him for he knows not what he's done. And everyone else around me, it did not fit into their consciousness. So what happened in that moment, when everyone started to control and tell me how I had to live and do this, in that moment, two things happened. The first thing is they edged God out. They edged the Creator out of me. My ego kicked in. And the second biggest thing that happened to me was I started to look at my own reflection in the mirror with massive doubt. That was the first time I doubted Karen. In doubting Karen, I also did not trust in the divine in that moment. I did not know if divinity, God, had my back anymore. So I ended up, because I went into self-doubt, it awoken in me all of the other programs. My ego started to filter in my experience of life. As you know, I went on a long path. 14, I attempted suicide because I could not cope being in this body. I had lost that real connection to the truth of who I was. I couldn't cope with that. I did not know how to navigate as an ego person. I did not know, but I suppressed that intuition and that wisdom and that knowing. And I started to live a life for about 15 years of putting more value on the external world. It mattered more to me what I thought you thought of me than what I thought of me. And I lived my life that way. I started to do things just to people please. It was all about pleasing everyone, because in that moment of denying Karen, I also denied my authentic expression of who I was. So to preserve that, I assumed everyone would reject me and not like me. So I became a version of myself for everyone else. And this went on for many, many years. And the inner battle and the inner self-hate, and I was never comfortable. I couldn't be comfortable around other women. I would check you out and I would try and find something about you to make me feel better, something in you that wasn't good in my judgment, but it was a survival mechanism because I did not feel good. It wasn't that I meant it to you, but I just did not feel good. So my heart got caged up and I personalized the whole of life around me. And my son was born. I ended up being a single mother at the age of 19. His dad ended it 3 weeks before I gave birth. When I gave birth to my son, something in my heart was giving birth back to as well. There was this love, that profound love again. And I noticed it, but I kind of stayed with, no, I'm not listening to that. Again, I did not listen to my intuition. So I went on another path and I ended up in a relationship for 14 years. And I knew I was not meant to be in that relationship. But we had a baby together. And he was a good man. And he was good for me. He grounded me. He helped me as I went into college for 10 years. So I said, no, I have to do this. I have to do this because this is how it's meant to be. A good man, a good partner, a good dad. I'm in college, get the house, get the title, get it all. So you're somebody in the world, because I was trying to be somebody in the world. And I remember we went on holiday out to Portugal. And this is the moment when intuition started to come in. It became so strong I couldn't ignore it anymore. Or to grab the beautiful quote from Leonard Cohen, there's the crack has to happen for the light come in. There was a moment where there was a crack in my psyche. And in that moment, my partner of 14 years was sitting across from me. I'm in a bikini. And he looked at me and he said, I can't do this anymore. It was day one of our holiday together. We were in this adult-only resort. And I looked at him, but I had a knowing. Something happened. In that moment, I did not personalize his. I did not internalize it and personalize it. I watched him. I saw his hand, and you couldn't make this up. This is how I love the synchronicity of intuition. His hand was on a book, and the book was from my spiritual teacher he named. And the title was called More Truth Will Set You Free. More truth will set you free. In that moment, I recognized he was speaking his ultimate truth for him.
Yeah.
So I honored that for him, and I looked at him and I said, I need to breathe. And I picked up this book and I sat on a bench on my own and I started to remember that child who would climb the wall, the child who was a formidable little force, who just loved everybody, loved everything, not judged anything. And I texted my son Walken saying, we've just broke up. Two beautiful things came in that moment. I sat on that bench and I held that book to my heart and I said, I want to call her home. I want to know her. I need to call her back. Where is she gone? I feel so caged. I don't feel like I've been me for a long time. I want to know her again. In that moment, the book, I just breathed into it and I opened it, and the quote, couldn't make it up, I love it. The quote from the book was, "Sometimes we turn to God when our foundations have been shaken, only to recognize it was He who had shaken them. God is a very clever guy. He hid himself inside of the one place he knew we would not look. He hid himself inside your heart." Next minute, a bell went on my phone. It was my son. And my son said, "You've been through a lot lately." And I know this, it's an Irish saying, and you might have it as well. God won't give you what you can't handle.
Yeah.
And in that moment, then he said, "Maybe now let God in more." In that moment, I realized that the way out was the way in. In that moment, I recognized I never lost my intuition. My intuition didn't go anywhere. My intuition was just trying to communicate through my shadow side of myself. My intuition was all of those inner critics, that self-blame, that self-hurt, that judgment. That was actually my intuition saying, and I did this work where I actually did what we call gestalt, where you put an empty chair there and you dialogue. I put her on that chair and I dialogued it out with her. And she told me, "I am the one you've been waiting for your whole life. I have loved you your whole life. I have been watching you your whole life. I am the one, I am the answer. I am the solution. I am not the problem."
Oh, I love it. I love it.
And I just went, okay.
Yeah, I'm listening. Thank you, sister.
I have been living this inside out.
Yeah.
And I did, and I took myself. And when my partner left, I took that as an opportunity to go celibate in every way. I went completely celibate, and I put myself in the depths of myself, and I sat out in nature, accessing my own true nature, learning to listen to her again, because she felt like a foreigner to me. I did not know how to have a relationship with her. You want a soulmate, go and be the best mate
of yourself, right?
Yeah.
Well, Karen, I love this, and I know the audience is loving it too.
This past year, as we found ourselves closed off from the world and from each other, a book was being written by a small group of wild women. That book inspired the manifesto that gave birth to a movement. Imagine an emotionally charged letter of gratitude from one struggling anonymous woman to another anonymous woman who'd mentored her and awakened the wildness within her without even realizing it. One wild woman awakening another wild woman, inspiring her to believe when she'd almost given up, to let loose her wildness and step into her true power. Being a wild woman means to lead fearless, to love fearless, to live fearless, to be kind, thoughtful, driven, and balanced, to embrace honest wealth, to trust our intuition, to develop true leadership, and to welcome diversity. We are Women Gone Wild. Come be wild with us.